Velkommen til denne spesialsendingen her hos oss i Finansavisen på Scandic Holmenkollen Park Hotel, der altså Pareto har sin 30. energikonferanse. Vi skal høre fra en veldig spesiell gjest nå, som er en av de store navnene her på konferansen, også på den store åpningsdiskusjonen som akkurat er over nede i lokalene under oss. Andreas Sohmen-Pao har altså i 20 år gått fra å overta Bergesen rederi her i Norge til å styre da dette konglomeratet som heter BW Group, en av verdens største maritime industriklynger. De er jo en gigant også på Oslo Børs, får vi jo si, ikke bare for selskaper som gassfraktrederiet BW LPG, oljeselskapet BW Energy og BW Offshore, men også andre selskaper som produkttankrederiet Hafnia, Cadeler med sine løfteskip for havvindturbiner og flere fornybarselskaper, inkludert av BW Ideol. Med over 10 000 ansatte globalt, eller får vi si nesten 500 skip i flåten og selskaper verdt da 75 milliarder kroner på Oslo Børs, så følger næringen med når Sohmen-Pao snakker, og snakke det skal han gjøre med oss også. Han har akkurat fortalt publikum her nede at Norge og Oslo Børs risikerer å bli litt utkonkurrert i kapitalmarkedene nå som den store energiklyngen, hvis ikke vi holder oss konkurransedyktige. Mer om det, utsiktene for energi, om vi risikerer en resesjon, og hva som egentlig skjer i BW Group om dagen. Det blir det mer om når Andreas Sohmen-Pao er min gjest rett etter dette. Da står jeg her med en av de store nøkkelnavnene på Pareto-konferansen her på Holmenkollen Park Hotel. I'm going to switch to English now because Andreas Sohmen-Pao, chairman of the BW Group, you're one of the key names here for this conference, but you've been a participant for many, many years, and you're a close, shall we say, customer, at least friend maybe of Pareto Securities as well with all your businesses. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
The Jubilee here today is 30 years of the Pareto conference, but you've been here, 20 years now since Bergesen became what we know today as BW Group, or at least parts of it?
Exactly. It was 20 years ago that we signed the deal with Morten Bergesen and Pettersund, and it's been a great journey since then. We've grown significantly from then 2 companies worldwide in Bergesen to 18 companies in the group now. And the fleet has grown, and the number of people we have in Norway has grown too.
You're involved in everything from shipping, oil production, also renewables, which we'll get to. But talk about what Norway as an energy region looks like for you being based in Singapore. Most of your companies are listed in Oslo, which I know a lot of people, including Pareto, appreciates. But still, what is Norway's position now, as you view it?
So one of the reasons we invested 20 years ago was because we saw such a fantastic cluster in energy and shipping, meaning that many different types of company across the sector are represented here, but also at individual level that it's such strong capabilities. And so it was a great team here. In fact, after buying Bergesen, not a single person came from Asia or elsewhere in the world to Bergesen, and we didn't ask a single person to leave the organization. So it was really very much status quo because we had so much confidence in the capabilities, and we see that still today. I mean, it's a deep and strong cluster for energy and shipping.
Talk about your view on the energy market now. We're seeing close to $95 a barrel for Brent now. The oil price strike in Australia for LNG is pushing up gas prices in Europe. Irene Romanoff from Equinor was just here talking about how tight the market really is under the surface, as she described it. What's your view now?
So if you paint long, broad strokes and you look at fundamentals, I think the story is still that the space has been underinvested for a number of years, and that means as long as we see this continued growth in demand, which we are seeing, that the market will be tight, it will be short, and therefore prices will go up. I think there was a moment 3 months ago, 6 months ago, where we were like, is the thesis wrong? So if you're painting short strokes, you will see moments where the market is either worried about China growth, or more Russian barrels are coming to the market than was expected, or Iranian barrels are moving, which people weren't expecting. And as a result, the market for a while thought that there was enough. Right now, I think we're tight, and I expect that we will see additional tightness going into the winter.
Are you preparing for a world which we kind of live in now, where we see a lot of ships like the ships you own, having to sail further to transport gas, oil, other products further because of all the sanctions against Russia. Is that a sort of state of existence that we have to get used to and can actually plan for going forward?
Yes, I think that is now the base case, which is longer distances, in part because of Russia, in part because Panama Canal is challenged with low water levels, in part because of new refining regions coming up. If you take LPG as an example, we always saw it as a supply-driven market where 20 years ago it was really coming out of the Middle East. Now we have incredible volumes coming out of the US and massively growing demand in China for propane, for LPG imports. And so these distances are all increasing.
We have a big event tonight, Norwegian time at least, 8 p.m. The Federal Reserve will announce their decision on rates. Are you preparing in the BW-systemet group for a recession with all the central banks increasing rates, trying to fight inflation, but also in effect increasing cost of capital and the cost of doing business?
Yeah, so we just had a meeting of most of our CEOs here recently, and this was one of the things that I was saying personally. I think that we are very close to, if not already in a recession. Obviously it's different region by region, but some of the headline numbers look okay, but what I'm seeing, if you scratch the surface, is some very deep cracks developing. And the most obvious point to make being that when you go from a very low interest rate world to where we are today, there will be fallout. It's just that there is a lag effect.
But you're still waiting for the fallout to happen.
Yes, and we as a company, we just prepare ourselves. So we have very strong balance sheet, low leverage. We've hedged a lot of our interest rates, so we're protecting ourselves against it. If the world does well and we have a soft landing, we'll be fine. If it goes badly, then we're bracing ourselves.
We'll cross our fingers. I want to finish off with renewables and also sort of get your view on also for the future, or Norway as going forward in the future. A lot of talk here, both from Pareto and others, about the green transition. We've seen some challenges, especially in offshore wind. We've seen a lot of projects generally get cancelled or postponed with increasing interest rates and the cost of capital. What do you, from your position, need to see happen here in Norway for Norway to remain in the position that it's had, at least in your system?
Right. So I think that renewables is obviously a very big sector with many subsectors. And as a company or as a country, one needs to pick one's spots and be thinking about where is the need the greatest and where does it match with capabilities. And so actually one of the first renewable companies we had in our portfolio was Corvus, which is Norway-based. It's a battery company for the maritime sector.
Which is a cooperation with Norsk Hydro.
Exactly, with Norsk Hydro and Equinor and Shell. And is doing very well in terms of uptake and demand and so on. And some of the battery developments, I think Norway is sort of seeing that as obviously the ocean industries, to the extent that relates to renewables and transition. But I think it is important to then decide, where to focus perhaps, because it's a big sector.
Yeah. But are there things or areas we need to improve? If you look at from the specter, from the brokerage houses to the stock exchange to the investor community, financial media analysts, are there areas where we need to step up our game to maintain our position? Because you have chosen to do some listings in the US, or you don't have to stay in Norway if you don't want to.
So my belief, it may be a little bit philosophical, but governments are there and regulations to provide a loose framework, but ultimately the most powerful force is market forces and private sector. And so the question, I don't have a simple answer to what you're saying, but is how can one establish frameworks? Norway's been very good at providing some, for instance, tax incentives or grants. You look at Northern Lights for CO2 capture. So how can there be a little bit of a push and then step back and let the private sector do its magic? And Norway historically has been quite good at that. So, I'm not sure I can give you a singular answer.
No, but obviously you're engaged in batteries.
Yes.
What other?
I think carbon capture is another very interesting one.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you what the sort of renewable areas are most interesting to you.
Yeah. So at the moment we're in solar, wind, biofuels and batteries are our main focus. We're also doing water and some digital technologies. We're looking very closely at carbon capture. We're looking at ammonia as a zero carbon fuel because we're already carrying ammonia in our ships, and we see that as a strong emerging trend. And so production of new fuels, I think, is going to be big, but also storage of carbon is a big challenge we need to address.
Mr. Sohmen-Pao, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us here in Oslo.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Og det var det vi hadde i denne lille spesialsendingen med Andreas Sohmen-Pao, altså styrelederen i det store BW-systemet, som altså en av nøkkellistene her på Pareto-konferansen-bonus. Mye mer dekning av denne konferansen, det får du på FA-TV og FA-ennå utover både dagen i dag, onsdag, og i morgen på torsdag. Husk å søke opp økonominyhetene der du hører på podcast, så får du høre alle intervjuene. Vi ses!